Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're going to be discussing City on a Hill Season 2 premiere. Hell of an episode. If you've not subbed to the channel or hit the bell, please do so. We'll be doing these reviews every single week. Hit the little thumbs up and leave a comment. That helps the channel, and we're going to jump right into it. It's amazing how there are two things that occur in this episode that kickstarts everything, that causes the chain reaction, if you will. That being Jackie doing what Jackie does, partying with, in the beginning, it's just great. He's partying with this woman. We don't know who she is. Holly Gunner is her name. And she is the assistant U.S. attorney, and which we find out. They're partying. She ODs, has a stroke. He dumps her at this hospital. I'm laughing. It's not funny, but Jackie does what Jackie does. That causes a chain reaction. And then the second thing, a cop is chasing down a young guy. He's got drugs on him. He throws the drugs in a random car. This happens to belong to a young girl named Madeline Wilson. She's completely innocent, but the cops are on her ass. Now the feds are on her ass, I should say. These two events lead to all the craziness that occurs throughout the episode, and I'm assuming the rest of this season. Just on that alone, what did you guys think?
I thought it was a great carryover from last season. There's several new characters. There's a lot of things going on. A kid gets shot. There's so many layers that this show does a great job of stacking things on top of each other and then kind of drawing them all together to have them all kind of intertwined. And the way this show starts, you can already see how they're going to do it. Now, you don't know the outcome of all the things, but between the drugs, the feds going after the cops, going after the DA, like it's so many people intertwined that I'm really looking forward to how this is going to transpire, like how the season's going to figure this shit out.
Yeah, I gotta agree. It's pretty good transition. We have a surprising amount of returning characters. I didn't think as much of so many people from the cast of last season would be returning. But I'm still also very interested and engaged with the new plot lines and the new characters, and to see how this all weaves together. And the way it's come together so far, is surprising, and it maintained that feeling you got from the first season. Like some series, you start you have that season one and it's incredible, and you don't know how that transition into season two is going to be. This still feels very much in the same vein of season one, and some very good setups.
Yeah, I agree. You could literally, which I did, you could go from episode 10 to this episode, and the transition is buttery smooth. It's a little time jump, but not a major one, and all the consequences and all the things that occurred at the end of the last season carries over. Yet we also do introduce all these new plot lines and new stories, and it's very seamless. So yeah, credit to the writers for that. DeCourcy, his war with Jackie continues, and a new wrinkle in that is introduced in the whole situation with Madeline Wilson. So this young girl, the feds have her. They want to basically use her to give them information. She's completely innocent. They pretty much know this. They don't give a shit. And DeCourcy's wife, Siobhan, she's working with a new character, Grace Campbell, who is works with the community. Well, we learn some shit at the end, which we'll get to in a minute. But she works with the community. She works with local churches. She's trying to get the police to do what they're supposed to do and not do all the corrupt shit that they do. And at least that's what it appears. And so DeCourcy's basically asked to get this girl free. So he uses Jackie to try and do this. And like normal, DeCourcy's trying to do a good thing. He shouldn't have went to Jackie. That's my opinion. I want to get your guys' opinion. Whenever you go to Jackie, shit is going to go bad, because no matter how good your intentions are, he's going to do something horrible. And by the end of the episode, that in fact happens. As far as the DeCourcy making that decision to go to Jackie because he thinks he sort of has him, do you guys think that was a mistake? And where this relationship, where is this thing headed?
I think putting any trust in Jackie is a mistake from the get-go. I think that DeCourcy thought that he had an in. he's using Jackie as his into the FBI, and like you said, he felt like he had something on Jackie, so
Yeah,
he's
let
going
me
to be able.
clarify. He thought he knew for a fact that Jackie was involved in Holly Gunner's ODing situation.
Yeah, so he was trying to use his leverage on Jackie to get Jackie to comply when Jackie basically told him to fuck you, uh, or fuck off rather. But because he didn't comply, then he tried to use the Holly Gunner stuff against him, and then that pissed Jackie off, and then that set off the rest of the chain reaction, where he basically flipped it on him. You know, Jackie is a giant piece of shit, but who he cares about is himself. So when he felt like the heat was on him, he made sure to flip it over so that it was now on DeCourcy instead.
Exactly, and Jackie kind of lives for flipping this type of drama and punishing those who don't like him. So this was a huge mistake. Jackie is very much the type of character that if you absolutely can, you just avoid him. You don't help him, you don't hinder him, you just avoid it, at least in the Corsi's seat, because drawing his attention in the first place, that can bring no good to the situation. It's like now Jackie may be invested, and he's going to find more ways to mess with the Corsi, and if there are ways for him to integrate himself into anything that he's doing, he's going to do it just to mess with him. So it absolutely was a mistake, and I feel like Ward has like he hasn't played all his cards yet, because there's still, from the end of season one, there's that big file of evidence against Jackie that they've put together, and I don't think they've used that yet. Like they like they made an effort to tell you to have the detective tell Ward, like, hey, in case you ever want to take a shot at Jackie, here's this file full of things he did and evidence against him and things I've investigated. So, there's a lot of dots connected there, and I'm not sure Jackie 100% knows about that. So, I guess we'll see as the season goes on.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That file, I think, will come into play at some point in this season, because there was always questions as to Jackie's involvement in, was it Roach, the quote unquote suicide that was not. um, so Jackie, the thing that triggers Jackie in this episode that really lights a fire under his ass is the fact that he's being forced out. He has new leadership that has come in. The FBI is getting cleaned up a little bit, and we have this new character, Karen, who comes in and basically says, "F off. We're done with you. We're done with the corruption. We're done with the working with the Whitey Bulgers." They name drop, and they bring up Jimmy Ryan and all that stuff. So basically, that's what motivates him to do all the things he does. That being, he convinces her that she's going to take the fall. That basically, as she digs into the FBI and tries to clean it up there in Boston, that when the dirt rises, it's going to surround her, and she's going to be sort of the face of all the corruption, and she'll take the fall. Now, at first, it appears as if she's like, she doesn't buy it, but she does, because she takes his advice and she launches a probe into the police department about planning drugs on Madeline Wilson, which is insane. The fact that Jackie was able to pull this off, he has a little pep in his step and he's smiling at the end, but it's all because he's caused all this chaos. So yeah, what do you think in terms of the whole him getting kicked out of the FBI? Will that resurface? How is that angle going to play throughout the course of this season?
I don't know, because like you said, he kind of convinced her that he had something to bring to the table. So she may go back on, trying to get him out, but I'm not sure that at the end of the day, her intentions are still to clean up, and he is uncleanable. He's he's a stain on the department, and at the end, I don't know if he'll get something against her, or if he'll get something against the U.S. attorney, or if he'll turn around on DeCourcy and try to throw him under the bus to bring heat on him. He's a very good deflector, and kind of drawn attention away from him. But I'm really curious as to how he's going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like very much like Jackie's kind of pulling a divide and conquer here. He's got, you know, two enemy factions against him. One is his own, and I'm sure he's going to leverage his seniority there and the fact that while people don't like him, they know him, and he's experienced, and he's been able to stick in that position for a very long time, and in fact be celebrated. So, he's going to make her look like the enemy, likely within his department. So, maybe everyone else is as hostile towards her as he is towards the end of this, or maybe he's secured his place in some way. He's going to gain some form of leverage, but he like because right now she's already fallen for some of what he's done. Clearly he feels threatened. Otherwise he wouldn't be so angry. But I see Jackie making it out of this unscathed. At least his conflict with her.
Yeah, because he, throughout this, he is very, like I said, he's good at, the whole deflecting and everything, but he's also good at, he's super smart. Like they've showed him quoting different books. And then as soon as DeCourcy starts mentioning something about, some law or this rule, and he'll immediately fire back at him. And I don't know what the requirements were in the 90s for the FBI, but I know now you have to have like a 3.5 GPA. Like it's very hard to get in. So he's not stupid. Jackie is super smart. He's a drug addict, alcoholic, but he is still super smart and very manipulative. So I'm curious as to how he's going to convince the new person in charge, or if he'll basically just throw everything on her. Because, throughout this episode, they were saying they're making fun of Jackie. So I felt at the very beginning that
I
he
am
wasn't going
woman,
to
hear
have
me
a poll.
roar.
Yes. So I was thinking that he wasn't going to have poll anymore. But he goes to the guy that when they were staking out the area for the drugs, and he fucks with them, but immediately they give in to what he wants. So he's still feared. He's still, respected, even though they're fucking with him. But I'm curious as to what she's going to do.
Well, didn't you get the impression that Jackie's been laying low lately? Like that was sort of the vibe that, in terms of, I guess, his presence within the FBI. Because
Well,
there's several references to him sitting at the bar alone. He's not telling his jokes. It's almost like at the end of the season, last season, he sort of laid low, and then that's why when he fucks everyone over in the in this episode, he's back smiling and like he got his mojo back.
I think all the stuff that happened with his daughter, him
Yeah.
killing Clay, like he, as much as he is a piece of shit, and I think the stuff with his daughter really fucked him up. And I don't think him killing Clay really fucked him up all that bad. I think he's probably killed several people by this point and doesn't give a shit about people. Like you said, dropped Holly Gunner off it and just kicked her out of the car and was like, all right, see you later, bitch. Like it was the most hateful, unapologetic action. And it shows how he cares about people.
Right. Yeah. Because she in
About his
that
daughter.
scene she was just a problem to solve, and he's like, oh god, like get it, like your responsibility now, bye. you know but you make a good point, because his daughter is the one character that you can say he possibly even cares about in the slightest, other than himself. And his actions, indirectly will I guess sort of directly hurt her in a very big way. And so this was him not necessarily turning over a new leaf, but you know, trying perhaps not to provoke as much in the time gap.
Yeah,
Well,
because I think he had a severe amount of guilt. Because when Clay told him, when he was like, "Did you do this to get back at me?" and he was like, "You're goddamn right, I did." And I think the guilt that was weighing on Jackie for having that done to his daughter and it being blamed on him, I don't know that. I think he had a very hard time dealing with that. And once he basically lit a fire back under his ass when he was going to get fired, and I think it just the old Jackie's back now.
Well, briefly, let's jump right into that. The trauma of his family, not just his daughter, but even Jenny, sort of dealing with some of the shit she had gone through as a child at the end of last season, and all that sort of resurfaced at the beginning of this, and the family sort of trying to work through it They sort of did a little bit. You know, they're talking now and everything, but you could tell that he did care. I mean, there were scenes where you could tell it was fucking with him a little bit. All the different things that had happened. Now his way of dealing with it is sort of ignoring it completely. But by the end, you could tell that it is bothering him. Where do you think those storylines go, specifically with the daughter? Because I'm curious to what she does next. You know, she's trying to figure out, the school situation. She's trying to work through all this stuff. Um, yeah, where does she go from here? Or, I was wondering if they're going to introduce another character, maybe a friend, a boyfriend, whatever.
I I think that they did a. I think that it's going to fuck with Jackie again. I think by the end of this season, I think that she may die, and that it's going to hurt Jackie
How do you
because,
think?
well, I relapse. Like that is the drug. She wasn't an addict at the time, but that kind of drug will fuck you up. So I think that that is a great possibility. Also, because the reason she went to Clay to begin with was because she felt that need. Jackie wasn't giving it to her. She felt like her mom was ignoring her and going to school. Her dad was still always too busy at work. The mother-in-law or her grandmother was always making her feel like shit. So she sought attention outside of the family. And now she's trying to make amends. She's trying to talk to her mom. And her mom seems to be doing a good job. But she's a daddy's girl. She really, really loves her dad. And when her dad ignored her, her dad blew her off. I think that that's going to cause her to relapse because that's the one person whose opinion she cares about, and he's not giving a shit. But I think that it's not that he doesn't give a shit. I think that he can't deal with it. He doesn't know how. But I think that's going to cause some ramifications real soon.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and and he can't deal with it because he knows what they don't know, which is that in a very real way, this is his fault. And she's trying to make amends with him when really he needs to make amends with her,
Yeah.
and it's eating him alive. That it's like because how would you go about telling like even if you're Jackie, how would you go about telling your family that this is your fault? You know,
You don't.
and exactly, yeah. So which is why he's been walking away because he can't take that. He can't handle her trying to apologize for him for.
Well, answer that. Do you think he will by the end of this season?
I think it'll be like almost like a deathbed type scenario. Like I think that she'll be like on a respirator or something, and he'll have a private moment, and that's when he'll do it. But I do not foresee him doing it prior to that.
Yeah, I think Spencer's right about that. That it would have to take something like that for him to do it. Otherwise, he's just gonna bottle it up because it's too real to acknowledge for one. And as far as making amends with his wife, their relationship, like I know you didn't see the whole first season, but in my opinion, that's too damn rocky to resolve. There's too much there for that to ever really be resolved. And there's kind of there's more than a pettiness. Jackie was incredibly controlling with the relationship. Like she mentions, you know, him stopping her from having a job and everything and shutting down literally every opportunity whether it's work or school or whatever. When you go through and you see that, like I don't see them like really reconciling. And if they do, it's not the best idea. But then again, it's not really a good idea for anyone to be with someone like Jackie because he's so messed up.
Yeah, they seem to be in a I didn't see the whole season, but I did see the last several episodes, and it seemed to be like the relationship is horrible. But they both by the end were like, well, this is what it is. Like we're gonna stay together. And she gives the whole speech about how I tried leaving and hooking up with this guy, but I'm not in.
She
Forget that.
couldn't.
And
Yeah.
so it's this weird. There's nothing healthy about their relationship at all. But I think they're gonna stick with it. They both sort of. They're just gonna soldier through, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as you can see, because we start out this episode for one with him again, cheating on his wife. So but like you said, I think they'll stick together even though they shouldn't.
The let's move on to DeCourcy's wife. So Shaban is basically makes it clear by the end of the episode that she, in fact, has major political aspirations, and that's going to be a big deal, I believe, going through this season. We've already seen hints of it in this episode, the way it's affected DeCourcy because he's having, to do favors, and the one favor he was asked to do has turned around and made his life hell. That's going to continue, I believe. Now, maybe it'll work to his benefit. Maybe if she can get in right and she can get enough pull, maybe he can use that leverage to deal with Jackie. Maybe it'll flip, and he'll be able to ask for the favors. Where do you guys think that's going to go in terms of the political direction and how DeCourcy will factor in, if at all?
I, I don't like her. I feel I hate
She's
her mom.
ambitious.
Her her mom irritates me, but it and I don't dislike her because of her ambitions or what she's trying to do. I dislike her because I'm rooting for DeCourcy so much, and I feel like she's using it, and that's what bums me out. That's what irritates me. Not because she's ambitious, she's trying to do something for herself. That's amazing, good for her. But when it comes at the cost of DeCourcy, that's where it bothers me a little bit.
Me and Larry were talking. I'm sorry, Larry, to interrupt. He is the Ned Stark of this series. He's such a good guy. He legitimately gives a shit, and he tries so hard. And everyone around him brings him down. And even those who aren't bad, still, it seems to bring him down. And he's a tragic character the way he's written.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And that is his problem. And Shaban definitely is the thing. Like she's not as bad as like a Jackie or anything, but you
No.
know, like but she will compromise some morals for politics, it seems. And like it's not that, yeah, and I get why you dislike the character, Spencer. I absolutely get that because it's the sort of thing is like I don't think she cares for DeCourcy as much as DeCourcy cares for her, because DeCourcy mentions it towards the end of last season, when she's like, like when they're trying to make up and everything, and he's like, I notice when things are good with the coalition and everything, we're good, but when things aren't good with that, we're not good, you know. And even he's hinting at, it's like this is a marriage of political convenience, like you think we can rise together and use each other for that, but do we really have an interest in each other outside of that? And that's where the real problem is, so it's hard to say, and I guess we'll see this season whether they have any real sort of connection or whether they're going to wind up drifting even farther apart.
We bring in Jimmy Ryan.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, shit. He was in the trailer. He was in one of the trailers. He's a character that you could argue and say, well, his story is resolved, in some way at the end of the first season, but clearly not. He's back in the fold, and he has wormed his way into the main plot because he is directly tied to the events that sort of occur in the latter half of this episode that we're going to talk about next. Um, the drugs specifically, and he is, buying heroin, large quantities of it. Now Jackie has a moment where they're talking, and basically, Jimmy is well aware how he's viewed in his community. He knows that he's a rat. He knows that he's probably on borrowed time, but he just doesn't seem to give a shit. He's dealing drugs. Not sure who all he's working with or how big his organization is. Clearly, he's not doing it directly himself, so I'm sure he's got people under him at this point. Where the hell is this story going to go? And yeah, what are we doing with Jimmy?
His storyline, to me, it's not my favorite because he's my favorite character. To me, it's the most interesting because they've said it so many times. And then, if you watch anything about Whitey Bulger or any interview with Mark Wahlberg, like anything about Boston in the 80s and 90s, it was very much like if you were, pegged as a rat, you're done. So I'm really curious as to who he's working with to where it makes it even any bit of a reality that he's still even alive. So I'm really curious as to how that's gonna go going forward. If he's going to get killed by somebody, or if it's going to be one of those things where, and I won't mention the name because I don't want to spoil it for Larry, but there's a character in The Wire who just like out of nowhere gets shot and killed, and it feels like that's the kind of course that Jimmy Ryan's on. Like, we're not going to see it coming. He's just going to be walking down the street and some kid's going to shoot him, or some other drug dealer is going to shoot him and rob him. I feel like it seems like something like that is going to happen to him.
I mean, I hope I'm wrong because I hate the character, but I feel like Jimmy will be around till the last season. You know, somehow manage to survive. Like you said, it seems
Season
unlikely.
9.
Yeah, exactly right. Season 9's gonna end on they're gonna pan out from Jimmy's penthouse or something. You know, like as much as I dislike the character, but like you said, it's amazing that he's alive because he didn't just betray his brother and his brother's family. He betrayed like other people that were involved in the little gang. So you would think that people connected to them would have taken him out.
Entire multiple families,
right?
He betrayed so many people. Absolutely, yeah.
There's another crew that they were talking to that they were gonna pin like their next heists on and everything, and it's just like all that's out in the open now. So I can't imagine that Jimmy is in the least running around the same neighborhoods. Like, I can't. It's amazing that he's still in Boston at all. But I can't imagine he's operating anywhere near the same neighborhoods even.
Oh, I just love that he drove up on his nieces and nephews and his sister-in-law, and he's on the merry-go-round, just flips them off, and then he drives away, because it's almost for like a second you think he feels guilty about what he did, and then just the rest of the episode it goes on just being Jimmy, and it's like he stopped caring.
Old Jimmy.
Yeah, because that's as much guilt as Jimmy seems to feel. He's like, oh, I feel bad about that. Oh, well, I'm Jimmy, so I'm going to keep doing it anyway.
Yes. You're right. He's one of those characters that's just so brilliantly written to hate, but he does it so well. The actor plays him so well.
It reminds me, you mentioned Ned Stark. It reminds me almost of like Joffrey. Like, you hate him so bad.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, I don't think he's as evil as Joffrey. He's still a piece of shit. But like, I'm just saying, like,
in the right world, Jimmy might be a Joffrey. I
don't. But you look at the way it's written, like, he's written as an unlikable, shitty person, but he's playing it so well that you're just like, damn. Or even Cersei. Like, Cersei, she's so unlikable. You hate her so much, but I've seen, her in so many other things, and she's a great actress. So I haven't seen him in anything else, or I might have. He just looks different. I don't know, but
yeah, I don't think I have. I was wondering. Yeah, he was someone I was curious if I had seen before. So let's talk now about sort of the last big thing to talk about. We're introduced to this street gang early in the episode. This is the same gang that sort of tied into the whole Madeline Wilson storyline and the whole situation with DeCourcy and Jackie and all that. And we're introduced to these two brothers early on, and at the end of the episode, they get into this shootout. And the crazy thing is, throughout the entire episode, we're introduced. I mentioned her earlier, but Grace Campbell. She's someone who's into the community. She's helping Siobhan, sort of, raise her stock, in the community, because she wants to, run for city council or whatever. And she helps this young woman at the bank. She's everywhere throughout the episode. And you're like, wow, this is a great person. Well, there's a shootout at the end, and a young 11-year-old girl is murdered. And we know that it's these two young men that were responsible for the murder. What we didn't know until the very last few minutes was that these two young men, their mother is in fact Grace Campbell. So it leaves you in a scene where we discussed this before we started recording, and this will be the big thing we're talking about for the rest of this review here. Is she involved, or does she not know? Now, I came at this thinking maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she's completely blind to the situation. Larry and Spencer disagree, and they think that she may be running this whole fucking operation. I think they could be right. You know, they convinced me. We like I said, we had a discussion before. Obviously, we'll know in the next couple weeks, but it's a hell of a plot line either way. I think whether she
I
is or isn't. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying, like, it's they've done such a good job showing us how connected Grace was and how important she was. She goes into that bank and the person apologizes to her. I mean, he was being a dickhead. He should have apologized anyway, but he apologized to her and then gave in to what she wanted, which shows how important
Wasn't
she.
he from The Wire?
Yes,
Yeah, he was one of the cops. I thought, yeah.
but you know, he was. She was able to get what she wanted. She was also when the girl died, she was like walking around like a crime scene, talking to the family. So her being that connected to where she could just literally do whatever she wanted, to me shows me how influential she is. And then when you look at both of her kids, the older son, whose name I don't remember,
I didn't get either
he
name.
didn't seem smart enough to be leading this organization. Like we watched Snowfall, and you got Franklin Saint, who is super smart, very savvy as far as business goes, and he's running this drug trade like a business. It's but I don't get that vibe from either of them. And I think that she is connected. This whole she's basically like running it, and we were talking about laundering it through her properties because for her to have as much money as she has in there and be that connected to the community, like she has to get money from somewhere because she's not trying to get the money from the people who live there. She owns like project buildings, and those people all love her. So my assumption is that she's doing everything for them. She's helping them, just like that girl. If she's 2 weeks behind, a landlord in a slum area like that normally would be, they're portrayed very differently. I don't know any personally, but they're always portrayed as these like heartless assholes. But she doesn't seem to be that way at all. She cares about all those people. So where are we
Absolutely.
getting our money from?
Absolutely. And at that, like a landlord for that type of area too, oftentimes you don't live in those more disadvantaged areas when you're the landlord. And she seems very unfazed about everything that's going on. And like you said, those are her kids. And their sons seem like they run the street crew, like they maybe sell her product and etc. And she seems like she launders the money and maybe oversees like the operation side of thing, like how everything is like the general operation overall. But it seems like this is a season where, because last season we saw a lot of a lot of small gangsters come together, and they were united by this code of silence and by a general loyalty for each other. But I think we're on our way to viewing something bigger this season. That it is a bigger, more organized crew than it initially appears to be. But I guess we'll see that play out throughout this season. But I'm pretty certain that like she's a much bigger crime boss than it appears. That it's not just a small street crew and her pushing these drugs. That she's laundered enough. That she's made enough connections. That there's political ties. There's the street crews that are selling her product. That there's probably other businesses that we haven't seen so far. But I bet it goes pretty far because it seems like DeCourcy is set prime to be in a situation where he's tripping over his toes in a number of unfortunate ways this season. But hopefully he comes out on top this time. Here's hoping he can actually do something good.
The amount of money we see and the drugs, like the whole exchange with Jimmy, that's major. You're right. That's major shit. Like this is not just some small time stuff.
Right.
And I could see a scenario where DeCourcy's in a weird spot because if Grace is a kingpin, she's playing both sides, and he's sort of caught in the middle. Do you think there's a police element to any of this that are in the know?
Well, likely,
Yeah.
And I'm wondering too, like there's the police element, there's the political element, and how many people in his like does anyone in his wife's coalition know? And when the truth comes out, are they going to want to cover this up? Is his wife going to want to cover this up because it's connected to the coalition even?
But you see how they're covering
Probably.
up the Holly stuff. They're wanting to cover all that up.
Yeah, I think that how connected she is and how smart she is, to me, was a big indicator of her being a bigger part of this than we are led to believe. Although I don't know that we're not led to believe it, because that was the assumption I came to. But I, I really think that she's the one pulling the strings. I don't think that it's either of the sons.
Yeah, and in fact, one thing we talked about earlier was also the dinner that they had. I feel like with the girl that got shot and everything, I feel like the grace that she was saying could have potentially been calling them out. Like because like you two mentioned, they looked worried when she mentioned the name. So it could have been her way of letting them know that she knows.
Yeah, that was the one. That was where the sort of the divide was. I saw that scene and thought maybe they were, because she's praying about the little girl, and I'm thinking, well, maybe they're freaking out because they were involved directly, and she's sitting here giving the prayer. But then it is hard to imagine them running. She's so well tied into the community. How the hell would she not know her sons are like the top drug lords? So it is. Yeah, I definitely could see her being involved. Like I said, we'll know, I'm assuming next week, but that man, that's going to be some crazy shit, because how is DeCourcy going to deal with that?
Right. I mean, because it's she's tied to so much, and honestly, with the cases they're handing to Corsi, and with the odds set the way they are against him in the first place, there's so many. I mean, he's really got to play it careful this season because there's so many cards stacked against him.
Well, I think that may pit him against his wife.
Yeah.
Towards the end of this, and I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. And his boss has already seen him as expendable, and which I forget which case he said he gave him. It was something political, and he told him, he's like, yeah, you're gonna drop the charges. And of course he just kind of asked, you trust me to do this? He's like, no, but he's like, I know you're one DA I can get rid of. So
That was the Holly Gunner stuff. He wanted all that swept under the rug and barely investigated, because she was the assistant U.S. attorney. And yeah, like you said, that relationship even is a little fractured, as far as how he's viewed in the department.
right, so the Corsi's got to be careful this season, because I don't see any allies other than his wife.
Well, it was a great episode. I didn't check to see if this was going to be a full 10 episodes. Hopefully so.
8.
Okay, it's going to be 8. Okay, so it'll be 2 shorter, but that's fine. So we still have 7 left. 7 more weeks. Like I said up front, if you enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up. Leave us a comment. We love hearing the comments, and we're going to be doing this every week. Do you guys have anything else you want to say regarding this episode before we end this?
Jimmy was in Ready or Not.
Anything else?
No, that was it.
I think that's it.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.